I came across your story through Sally Norton, who's kind of a mutual. Well, I guess she's a good friend of yours, a mutual acquaintance, though. But and I'm starting to learn that we have so much more in common than I could have even imagined after watching your interview with Annabelle. Um, us dealing with chronic pelvic pain conditions, having decades of oxalate toxicity. I was wondering if you could just start by telling us, how did you come across the the sort of like oxalate toxicity to begin with? How did you know that you had this?
I know now that I've had. Hi, Scott. I'm happy to be here with you. Um, I now know that I've been struggling with decades of this. I didn't know I was struggling for decades with this until I actually realized what it was. And it was the vulvodynia that I had,
Mm,
the pelvic floor pain and pelvic pain and urinary pain that actually ushered me into the knowledge. How that's a good way to put it. Okay. Sometimes desperation will get you to the place where you actually will do anything to get well, right?
yeah.
So, you know, now that I know what I'm looking at, I always say that, but I can tell you that every single decade of my life has progressively gotten worse with toxicity, oxalate toxicity. From the very beginning, and being a small child, I had these problems. And if I look back on it, I've had connective tissue disorder since I was small. So when you are warehousing oxalate, which comes from, it's a defense chemical in vegetables, nuts and seeds, plant food. At 20, you have things that are happening to you and you don't really understand why. And then at 30, you have some other things happening to you and you don't really understand why, but you just think it's you, like you're broken, you know. And then you go on to 40, and then at 50 and 60, it hits the fan hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you realize that doctors just aren't going to tell you about this stuff. There's no expert you could go to that's going to tell you about this stuff.
Well, the
So
problem is that oxalate toxicity affects your it's a neurotoxin, so it affects your mental health. Okay.
yeah.
It makes you seem crazy. You feel like you're crazy. And so every place that you go for help, they test you. They don't have any accurate testing to see what's going on with you. And so they interpret as that you're an anxious person, you have OCD, you're nutty, you come running in like, and you're shaking like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And you turn around to leave the office and they're like, oh God, she's back. She's the nutty one that thinks she's got this and thinks she's got that. But I wasn't thinking I had it. I actually did have it, but there was no way to see it. You can't see it.
Mhm.
So as far as the connective tissue went, it just snowballed into my 60s, where I ended up having so many problems that I ended up having 7 surgeries in 6 years. And,
Wow.
and those and those 7 surgeries were connective tissue related. Some of them I can't talk about right now because I had some complications that are, I don't even want to discuss. But everything from my neck down, including my brain was affected too, as you can see, but was severely impacted from this.
So,
And
so what woke you up to the oxalate issue? One day you must have just, where did you come across this knowledge
so what
about
happened
oxalates?
was, I had segued from gastritis, burning in my stomach, to vulvodynia. And if anybody knows what vulvodynia is, it is just a horrific vulvar irritation that, to quote my doctor, looked like the worst diaper rash she had ever seen. So I guess what it is that the oxalate crystals get into the genital tissue and causes tremendous inflammation and pain and burning. And then I remembered that my mom, who's passed away now, from pulmonary fibrosis. She had breast cancer, pulmonary fibrosis, and vulvodynia, which means my
Oh,
mother was also oxalate toxic. When she was sick 20 years ago, I helped her find the Vulvar Pain Foundation because she had vulvodynia and she was in so much pain all the time. She used to call me crying. Somebody's got to help me. Nobody can help me. She'd go to the doctor. They give her lidocaine. They give her zinc oxide. Everything other than what was really good. Estrogen. It was none of that. It was the nuts and the seeds and the chocolate she was eating. So I went back to that page. I was like, I remember my mother. I remember it said, don't eat beets, don't eat spinach. So I did what it said. Vulvar Pain Foundation. I went to the page, read what it said, and it said that this pain can sometimes be alleviated through a low oxalate diet. So I did it. I went on the low oxalate diet, and the pain started to subside. The burning started to subside. And as that burning subsided, so did a lot of other symptoms that I didn't realize were related. Because sometimes we go to the doctor and we have these, your thyroid's off, your ears are ringing, you can't see right, you feel like you have a foggy brain, or like you have the flu, or you have lumps in your breasts, you have gastritis or vulvodynia, and they see them as all different things. They see those symptoms as, oh, well, you must need some thyroid medicine, or, oh, that happens. Your ears start to ring when you get older. They just slough it off as being aging, or they see it as different things and they want to address it separately. But I got rid of the oxalate. And as I got rid of the oxalate, I realized the oxalate was affecting more than the pelvic pain that I was having. The lumps in my breast started to go away. My migraine subsided some. My thyroid numbers improved. My gastritis didn't come back. The only time I have gastritis now, which I think I told you, Scott, was that when I dump, because eating oxalate and dumping oxalate, as far as your body is concerned, is the same thing, okay? It's not a detox, it's an elimination, which means that if you have it warehoused, it's going to hit your blood whether you're eating it or whether you're getting rid of it. So the whole process of dumping can rustle up those symptoms again, because now your body's seeing this in there. It's causing inflammation, and your body wants to, your immune system gets turned on. So the only time I have those problems, but what I realized at that point was that I wasn't battling 20 different symptoms or 20 different problems. What I was battling was one problem. And that was that I was oxalate toxic.
And how long did it take before you stopped taking oxalates?
I stopped
or
as soon as I
consuming
read
oxalates that your vulvodynia started to get better?
right away.
Like within
Yeah, I
days?
always use this example, and I'll tell you the honest truth. I stopped eating it was the strangest thing for me, because I could actually feel it subsiding. Right before the time that I had gotten vulvodynia, I was having tremendous urinary problems. I would urinate, and I would come out of the bathroom. I'd say to my husband, I feel like I just urinated out shards of glass. And he would be like, okay, whatever, I didn't know what to do, where to run. My urethra was so irritated that it was actually spasming. That's how much oxalate I had in me. Okay. So my whole bottom half, like I said, no dignity. I have nothing to hide. If this helps somebody, so be it. That's what why I'm sharing my most intimate details. It was so bad that, so when I did what it said on the Vulvar Pain Foundation website, I could actually feel it slowly backing off day by day. I would be like, oh, it's a little less than yesterday. Wow, and I would feel it almost like the burning sensation and the pain was just slowly receding, almost like the tide, it goes out. And then I knew I had my finger on the pulse of something that was important, very important.
Yeah.
Because when I had vulvodynia, I had gastritis, that was like the culmination of where I was. I didn't realize everything else I had been through was related, but it was almost like I came to critical mass. And one night I think I have the months down. I had gastritis. I had vulvodynia. March, the gastritis started. April, the vulvodynia started. In May, I ended up in the hospital with vertigo. So bad that I was vomiting in the waste paper basket outside the hospital emergency room entrance.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. And that's how I feel right now. But so people don't understand how prevalent this problem is. Like you mentioned your mother, even like there's a study, and I've seen this very just on an anecdotal basis of people with breast cancer typically have very high oxalate diets,
Right.
So I guess you're
oxalate
fortunate
is
that you haven't.
right. Oxalate is very attracted to breasts. When they go in there and they dig out those little biopsies, those calcium biopsies, that's calcium oxalate. Most. Okay. It has a direct correlation to breast cancer. So honestly, Scott, if that was the only thing it did, it should be enough to get people's attention. That's not Jeannie DeAngelis or Sally Norton saying it. That's medical research saying it.
Exactly.
So go ahead.
So I was just going to say that's crazy. So there's so many problems, and it goes so far beyond just kidney stones. Everyone just associates oxalates with kidney stones, and people will be like, "Oh, well, I don't have a kidney stone problem, so I could eat as much spinach as I want." But then eventually they start getting these conditions. They start getting chronic pelvic pain conditions, and a lot of times, like they'll say, "Oh, well, I don't have chronic pelvic pain syndrome. I have vulvodynia, or it's all under the same umbrella. A lot of them have the same root cause, which is oxalates, right? Neurological problems, toxicity. I mean, there's so many different problems that causes.
Well, it's a systemic problem. And the issue here is that there's two very important points here, okay, that you mentioned, that you touched upon. First of all, you could have oxalate toxicity and not have any symptoms. And the way I found that out was when I was dumping in the summer and I couldn't step on my right foot for a week because I had gout. I had never had gout in my life. That's one. The second thing that you said was that, oh, geez, you said, see? Not just because
you
of a
can't blame
grandma.
everything on oxalates.
Well, no, I know. No, you said something about that you don't have to
Chronic pelvic pain.
You said about the kidneys. Okay.
Right.
So this is just logical to me. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm certainly not as smart as Sally. She's the brainiac in the crowd. Okay. But I do know that when you get a kidney stone, it's the way that you get a kidney stone is that you end up having these crystallizations that form into stones in your kidneys, correct? And what do kidneys do? They filter your blood, right? Isn't that how we make urine? I think. Okay. And so what that means when people say to me, well, I don't have a kidney, I don't have a problem. I don't have a kidney stone. I got to tell you, I had one kidney stone once. I had every problem under the sun. Here it is. Here's the list. I'm holding it up for you. Okay.
Oh, Jesus.
So my point is that I didn't have hardly any kidney stone, but I had all of that. So yeah, the kidney stone argument doesn't sit well with me. And the other reason
that's ridiculous.
Well with me is because if your blood is heading towards your kidneys to be filtered and you end up with kidney stones in your kidneys, that means that blood has gone everywhere else. Correct?
Exactly.
So that means that this stuff, this is like the railroad stopping at stops along the way. Okay. The last stop is the kidneys for some people. Some people drop it off along the way and the train is empty when it hits the station, the kidney station. So just because you don't have any kidney stones doesn't mean that all along the train route you aren't dropping off calcium oxalate crystals. So that's just me using logic. Okay. So if people don't want to apply logic to the situation, they're going to find themselves in a lot of trouble.
Do you think that you were on a super high oxalate diet for a while there, trying to be healthy, or Like,
Oh,
were you just sort of on a standard diet, just eating potatoes and stuff like that, were you eating just
okay.
actual super high
I
oxalate food?
Listen, my friend, people that get themselves this sick are people that wanted to be healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
Exactly.
now my tendency as a Sicilian person, Italian, grew up in a Sicilian home, an Italian home. I had an American mother. My father was, Italian. My mother was also Italian, but so the food on both sides was Italian food, you know, vegetables, nuts, figs off the grandpa's tree, tomato paste you made in the backyard. Everybody ate macaroni and wheat and bread and everything. So that was my cultural food. I grew up on that. And I had a natural attraction to vegetables. So, and then when I wanted to be healthy, high dose vitamin C. So, there's a little, aside that we could talk about. Oxalate constipates you. Okay. So here's all these people drinking and eating all of these vegetables, and none of them can. So then they go to the doctor, and the doctor says, take Miralax, which makes everything worse. I'm not going to say it turns into oxalate, but it probably, yeah. Take high dose vitamin C. That'll make you go, makes more crystals. It converts to oxalate in your body, and you have even more crystallization now, and you're even more constipated. So the fixes that health food offers to people for problems that come from oxalate is more oxalate, which makes the problem worse. Okay. So then when I had gone through, when I got, I'd spend most of my time, trying to be healthy. I mean, eating dark chocolate, spinach sauteed. I was a huge Swiss chard eater. I work across the street from Whole Food. Every 3 times a week, I'd go over there, get 2 big bunches. I was so proud of myself of Swiss chard, because what could be better? You go home, you saute it with sun-dried tomatoes, you add cannellini beans to it, and then you toss it around with some pasta. Fantastic, right? So fantastic that I was grabbing the waste paper basket in front of the emergency room, vomiting. That's how fantastic it was. And when I got really, really sick, I thought that the way to keep myself from having more surgery was to up everything. I cut out dairy. I upped juicing. I upped almond flour. I was putting kiwi. I was eating kiwis like apples. I was eating roasted beets like apples. I was eating raw beets. I could go on and on. Sometimes when I think about it, when I'm like, I'm like, I'm lucky I'm alive.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's terrible, Jeannie. I just have to say, I hate to interject, but I go to my health food store all the time. It's around the corner from my place. I could just walk there, and they have a juice bar there. And I see people who are legit sick. They're going in there. There's this woman, I've talked about her before in my interviews, but she goes in there and she has cancer. And a lot of these people, they go in there and God help them, and I've done this before too, but they go in there thinking, okay, I'm going to do something good for my cancer. I'm going to go get my spinach smoothie and my beetroot smoothie and turmeric and all this. And they have these juices are the worst concoction of oxalates I've ever
I
seen.
used to drink them all the time.
Oh my
I used
God.
to put turmeric root in my juicer every morning.
Yeah, I was telling
I
Sally
would
in
go
our
to,
interview, like I said to her, I had to go up to this woman. I felt like it was my duty.
it is.
But people get mad at you when you do this because they think they're doing their body a lot of good and
They'll
they don't want to
remember
hear.
you on their when they will remember you on their way out.
Yeah, well, I told her, I said, I'm sorry, I know this is none of my business, but
Oh,
I
I
just have to
remember
say
that.
because I see you doing this smoothie, it's spinach, beetroot, and other stuff. And I say, I know I've heard you over say that you have cancer and you're going through chemo and stuff like that. And I just said, this is not what you want to be drinking. And here's a study showing it induces breast cancer. And her response to me is, well, everything gives you cancer now, so I try to sound the alarm bells with so many people, and they just don't
So let me
want to
ask a
listen.
question. I would
They
have
don't
said
want to
to her,
listen.
yeah, I would have said to her, well, if everything induces cancer now, this is me, okay? Because I don't care what anybody thinks. You're a gentleman, I can see. I'm not at all that way. I would have said, if everything causes cancer, why would you want to be adding something else that causes cancer to that mix? Wouldn't it be better to just back off a couple of cancer causing things? Not to use it as an excuse to drink more cancer stuff. Oh yeah, well everything causes cancer, so I guess I'll just drink more cancer. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, not only that, but the reason why everything does cause cancer is because we've gotten so far away from living a natural and eating natural foods, right? We're not living a natural life anymore. So we're doing all this stuff
Your
that
body would
causes
have a
these
better
diseases.
chance to fight cancer without oxalate than it will with oxalate.
I know, I know. But it's the dogma, right? Everyone's so caught up. Look, when you've been told that spinach is healthy for you for 70 years of your life, and some stranger comes up to you in the grocery store and says, this is the last thing that you want to be drinking, it's toxic. Are you going to sit there and be like, huh, maybe he's right, maybe he is, or maybe she'll just think, well, this guy's an idiot, he's a whack job, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I've been told for 70 years that spinach is a health food, right? So how do you get past that?
But
How
how
do
do
you
you,
deal with it? Because
okay,
I know that
so
you're on Instagram all the time trying to warn people about this stuff. So how do you
so
deal with that?
how
Does
do I
anyone
deal with
listen to you?
that? I say, how do you feel? You got cancer. Okay, so how's it working out for you? It's like people compartmentalize every thought that they have and they don't see the big picture. People need to see the big picture. If I'm eating healthy food every day and I am really addressing my health, but I have cancer and I don't feel good, something's not right. Correct? So if you said to me, even this I don't trust. To me, it's like oxalate is the devil. Okay. If you said to me, I feel vibrant, and I'm clear-headed, and I'm full of energy, and I have no intestinal problems at all. I've never had a lump. I've never had a UTI, and I eat all this food. I might say, oh, okay, maybe I'm talking to the wrong person. Probably not. It's going to eventually catch up with them. But like, it was funny. Somebody commented on Annabelle's podcast about something that I said, that I had said it's going to catch up with everybody, because it is.
Yeah.
I always speak the truth. She said, oh, I know people that eat this and that, and they're on keto, blah, 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 and they eat spinach and they eat chocolate and they're fine. For now, you don't know what's going on in there. Because it's very simple, Scott. Poison is not good for humans. Oxalate is a neurotoxin. Okay. So there is absolutely no way that you can say that it's good for anybody, even if they have no symptoms. If I drink, I say, if I say I can take, lucky me, I can eat 3 pallets of rat poisoning and nothing happens to me. Okay. Does that mean rat poisoning is good for you? No, it means so far you haven't died. That doesn't mean what's coming up the road is going to be pretty. I'm sorry to be so, but it's important. And as far as the breast cancer thing that you mentioned, which is very important, I try to follow like celebrities and stuff, because they're very big on pushing the vegan vegetarian diet. See what so and so eats, this is her diet. Well, I have like a very large spreadsheet, and what I have is the name of the celebrity, movie star / rock star, what they purport to be as far as their diet is concerned, proof of that, and then a whole column of every illness that they have. And if you look at these women that have had breast cancer And then when vegan, they're all dead. All of them are gone. None of them healed. They think that if they drink spinach and kiwis and lemon rinds every day, that their breast cancer is going to go away. And then you find that the very ones that do that to try to bring about healing to themselves end up not surviving. Why is that?
Exactly right. Yeah. No, a lot of that is a huge problem. I think I see this a lot in the communities of people developing cancer, and they go on a vegan diet because they think they're doing it, or they get any health condition for some reason. That is kind of like, this kind of new age thing where everyone's like, okay, if I have a disease of some kind, I'm going to go vegan to cure that disease, right? And it actually ends up being the complete opposite. A lot of times they make themselves a lot more toxic, right? So it's terrible. But so can you list off? So vulvodynia is a main thing for you. You've had terrible gastric problems. You said gastritis is one of those conditions. Do you have a lot of food intolerances? What are you sort of eating now?
Well, see, that's very interesting. I mean, we talk for a long time. I mean, I've been through everything, every kind of infection, I had C. diff for 2 years. It wouldn't go away. Oxalate prevents infection from going away. I'm what they call a panda. I have, I had it from when I was little. It's like a strep infection in my body that never went away. My titers were so high that they were like 800, like 3 years ago. That went away. Fibrinogen levels in my blood, which forms, God knows what, they wouldn't go down. They went away. I've had cysts grow. I had a dermoid tumor in my abdominal wall when I was in my 20s. I had to have a hysterectomy when I was in my 20s. I had a lupus diagnosis. I had blood clotting issues, not to mention the whole entire time that I was like a lunatic with anxiety. I had the incontinence started in my 40s. The incontinence is gone. Because when the irritation goes away from your bladder and your urethra, and your nervous system is working healthier, you're not leaking urine all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I had diverticulitis. I had to have a colon resection. I had acid reflux. I had bleeding gums. I had a cyst the size of an egg in my breast that dissolved after I went low ox. I lost hair. Okay. I had candida. I had burning mouth. I have gigantic rice rings in both eyes. I mean, if people want to take the chance of ending up like me, this is a free country. You can do whatever you want. But I'm telling you, any one of those things you don't want. Any one. Vertigo, thyroid disease. I ended up having to have a colon resection. I ended up having a huge incisional hernia where I had adhesions really bad. That has gotten better. I spent weeks in the hospital with an NG tube up my nose, scared to death that I wasn't going to live another month. If spinach means that much to you, go for it. You don't want to be in the hospital with an NG tube thinking maybe I should have listened to that crazy grandma when she tried to warn me.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I try to sound the alarm bells, but to be honest, I think with just the average person, I just don't talk about this stuff anymore because they just kind of look at you like you're
But
just some crazy person. You're living in the matrix.
Yeah, no, I talk to everybody. And if they think I'm crazy, fine. They thought I was crazy before when I was acting crazy.
Yeah.
So they might as well think I'm crazy now. But last night I went in to get my braces on because my teeth, I also think that this is oxalate related, but I'm not going to. Everybody's like, Jean, you think everything's oxalate related? Yeah, I do. Okay. Maybe I'll give it a 98%. But when I went in there, this really nice, I don't know, she was technician that works there. She goes, you remember in the summer when you told me about oxalate? She said, and my brother-in-law was really sick. And I'm like, yeah. She said, he couldn't even get out of bed. He would make a big smoothie in the morning with spinach and nuts and almond milk and everything. She said he would drink it. She said, and some days he couldn't even function. I know about that. I didn't function for 20 years. I felt like I had the flu for 20 years. Anyway, She looks
Yeah.
at me and she says, he feels so much better. He's like a different person. So I talk to people, and every once in a while, it's like being at an amusement park. You know those big walls with the holes, and you gotta throw the beanbag, and sometimes you get one in.
Mhm.
That's what it's like.
Exactly. Yeah, sometimes people might listen to you. It's very rare, but sometimes they might. What do you think are the worst offending foods? Like what if you were to tell a friend, if your friend just asks you, well, what should I be eating then? Like what are the worst culprits?
Right. Well, first of all, first thing you should do if you care is to get this book. I don't know, is it backwards?
It's
Get
not,
this
but
book.
I got it, and I got it on my Kindle, and I'm just started
Okay.
reading it, so it's
This
great.
book is going to tell you everything you need to know. You're going to understand what's going on. It's easy to read, and it sounds the alarm. There's not that many food. Listen, so this guy, the dental technician's brother, all he did was stop drinking the smoothies with the spinach and the nuts, and he's better. So sometimes even a couple of foods will make the situation a little bit better, right? But I would say spinach and chards and rhubarb, beets, beet greens, all nuts and seeds. I don't care which ones they are. The ones that don't have that much of a problem, it's just not worth it. And things like pistachios, which are lower in oxalates, have mold. So we don't need mold, because when you have mold, that it causes your body to form endogenous oxalate. So you don't want to add any more to that mix. All potatoes, tea, chocolate, high vitamin C, collagen, that type of thing, which there's certain things like vitamin C, collagen, that gelatin that can cause, low levels of endogenous, meaning that your body is actually converting it into oxalates.
Yes, yes. So one thing that actually blows my mind, because I went on a GAPS diet, and you drink a lot of meat stock.
I know.
And I noticed my kidneys start hurting. I'm like, what the hell? I'm literally getting zero oxalates in my diet. I'm just drinking meat stock
Well,
and
the meat
chicken.
stock, the meat broth is okay. It's when you leave it in the pot for 24 hours and you get that gelatinous.
Yes, the gelatinous stuff. And I thought to myself, why are my kidneys hurting? Why is my chronic pelvic pain flaring up again? Why am I getting rashes again? So you're telling me that the meat stock, if it's really collagen rich and it's gelatinous.
Beef broth. It's very healing, but you can't have a lot of it. But you see, as far as the GAPS body, one of my heroes is a Timeless Cookery, Emma. Emma, do you know her, Timeless Cookery?
Mhm.
And, she's a person who's a GAPS coach who really caught the vision for oxalate and realized that some of the things that they were recommending were not helping people. It's the same thing that the keto and the carnivore communities need to grab a hold of. If keto is good, but if you're making Kentucky butter bread out of almond flour and miracle pies and cookies all day and drizzling them with dark chocolate, you're going to get sick.
Yeah.
If you're a carnivore and you cut out all oxalate at one time and you completely go down to nothing, where you're only eating meat and fat and salt and drinking water, your body is going to start getting rid of whatever oxalate is housed. You have to transition. You have to add some sort of an oxalate level in there in order to keep you from dumping the oxalate too drastically.
Exactly. You know what the problem is, Jeannie? I just have to interject again on that one,
No,
because
I want you to, because I
when I
talk too
went,
much.
yeah, when I went carnivore, I went cold turkey. I just said, I'm cutting out everything. I am just eating, that's all I'm eating is just meat, nothing else. Okay. And I was going by what the influencers were saying to you, right? They say a lot of the influencers will just say it's best just to go cold turkey. And a lot of these influencers, I mean, they're in their 20s. They've never been sick with oxalates. They've never been sick, really that sick before. They're healthy. They're working out. They're doing great. So that's what I did. And within about a week, I kid you not, Jeannie, my chronic pelvic pain syndrome went down from a 9 out of 10 to maybe a 2 out of 10.
Okay, stop. That's because the oxalate in your bloodstream left. But What
Yeah.
happened after that?
It came back. It came
Uh,
back. Not only did it come back, I started dropping kidney stones.
see?
So my kidney stones that were sitting in my kidneys started dropping. And guess what? Guess what I had to do when that happened?
What?
I had to go on opioids. I had to take other drugs to help with the pain because the pain was so severe. I wanted to just leave the planet.
See,
I
now, if
needed
you
to
do
do
what
something.
Sally says and you do it the right way, okay,
Yes.
the carnivore diet, unfortunately, people think it's making them sick. It's not the carnivore diet that's making you sick. It's
That's
the
the
oxalate dumping that's making you sick.
and potentially other detoxing, right? If you have other issues like me, heavy metals and stuff like that. But a
Right,
lot
but
of
you
that goes
see,
in line with oxalates too. Yeah.
oxalate's the culprit, okay?
Yeah.
So all I'm going to say, oxalate chelates heavy metals. So this is a connection, all right?
No, big time. Yeah.
So, you know, people want to be purists. I get it. People are really sick. They're desperate. I get it. I was sick. Okay. I'm still sick. I probably have more surgery up ahead. Okay? I did a real number on myself. You want to have 8 surgeries in 7 years? Go for it. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. But if you go carnivore or you go keto or paleo, where you're eating these high oxalate foods, you're not going to get better. I mean, I saw 2 keto influencers. One who I'm not even going to mention their names. She went, she went, she went total carnivore for like 3 weeks. She was so sick. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I was texting her saying, it's the oxalate dumping that you're going through. That's what you feel. She didn't want to hear it. She went back and she's back to making her cookies, whatever. And somebody else that went total carnivore, same thing. I say to them, listen, the reason you feel sick is because you have a lot of housed oxalate and it's hitting your system. It's making you feel ill. And then unfortunately, people give up on something like a carnivore diet, which has the capacity to heal your whole body because they're not knowledgeable about what oxalate dumping can do and how it can make you feel so sick. And rather than say, I'll do this in a transition, I'll move towards, which is kind of like what's happening with me. I mean, like I cut out below all the high oxalate stuff slowly. Occasionally, if I feel a migraine coming on or I feel gastritis starting up again, I'll have a cup of very dark brewed tea, to try to slow the roll. I say you don't want Niagara Falls. You want a slow trickling stream. You want a little stream that's going to trickle out and it's going to leave in a friendly way. You don't want to be rolling around in the Niagara Falls and not knowing why you're drowning in oxalates.
Mm-hmm.
I eat some vegetables, very little, so little that it's not even worth mentioning, but I still do. Occasionally I'll have some winter squash. I'll have a forkful of coleslaw, like kind of like window dressing, I don't really eat salads or anything raw ever anymore. I'll have some maybe mashed cauliflower, a couple of spoonfuls of that, and then that's got dairy in it, so it's good. So whatever in any oxalate that's in the cauliflower gets absorbed by the calcium. And I'll eat like a little bit of pineapple because I find, this is just me, if I go completely no carb, I have very severe energy dips. I'll start to
Yes.
feel like I'm gonna die.
Me too. Me too. And I've had to add some squash and a little bit of white rice because look, when you eat like that for decades, I'm sorry, but you can't just completely cut out everything.
Right. So
If you've
like
been eating for that way for 50 years, you can't
right.
just say, oh, I'm just going to go carnivore. It's going to solve all my problems. That's the problem I have with the sort of the carnivore community is as much good as they do. I think that it's a lot of this advice is coming from really healthy people that have never really been sick. They're young and they haven't been eating like crap for decades, right? So they don't understand that you can't just cut out all these foods
And
all
the
at
way
once.
that we got like this was
Mhm.
because we were extreme about what we were doing.
Exactly.
I'll be
So
the
going
first to
from one
admit I
extreme to
made the
another
biggest
is not a good
mistakes.
idea.
I was dead set to get well.
Yes.
And because I was dead set, or to stay in the beginning, it was to stay well or to do the right thing. mean, I don't want to put my finger up, but take a look at my finger. You see
Oh,
how bent it
Jesus.
is? You see
Oh,
this?
yeah.
This is all calcium in my finger. That's the worst finger that I have.
Hmm.
I had that in my 30s. I'm putting this finger up. Hello. I'm really not doing that, but you can see if you look at it from this side how crooked my finger is. See it?
Hmm. Yeah.
Did that stop me? Did I know? No. So now guess what? You have me and Scott telling you, we're trying to warn you. If you don't want to be like this, where your fingers are all deformed, where you can't get a ring on your finger because you have bumps in your knuckles.
Hmm. Yeah.
So what you said is very key, because this extremism, when it came to this, is what got us in this problem. So extremism in any way, shape, or form isn't necessarily good. And so
Exactly.
slow transition, measured progress, moving it forward, monitoring how you feel along the way, taking advice from an expert like Sally. And there's other, I mean, there's the TOLO Oxalate group on Facebook, which is excellent. You know, you have somebody brilliant like Susan Owens, you know, you have a lot of influences on Instagram that can help you with your diet and everything. And for the love of
Elliot Overton.
Elliot Overton, oh my
He's
God,
good.
these are fantastic. But, you know, and I'll say this again, for the love of God, stop looking for excuses to eat this stuff. Like, well, can I have 5 almonds?
So
You
what do you
have,
do? So do you have it like carefully measured where you're introducing, or do you just kind of add some oxalates back in, like some black tea you mentioned, when you start feeling a certain way? Or
right, that's
do
what
you
I
do you
do.
do is that how you do it?
Yeah. Well, I, you know, at this point, it's gonna be 3 years in August. And so I just want to read you a list of what went away, okay? Because that's the
Sure.
important thing to know. We can tell you all these things not to do, but you got to have a reason why. Pain went away. I used to not be able to open jars because my fingers were so arthritic. Inflammation went down. I couldn't get any of my rings on my fingers. These things used to look like little sausages. If I went for a walk and I had my hands hanging down, if I lifted them up, my fingers were totally white and they were swollen like little sausages. They look like Italian sausages. That's gone. My gastro issues are 90% better when not dumping. When I dump and it goes through my gastro system, because it only comes out 4 ways: intestines, urine, sweat, and respiration. I used to not be able to breathe. I would be like, what's wrong with me? You know, it was because I was so toxic, it was in my lungs. I haven't had one UTI. I used to have chronic UTIs. I was on antibiotic every month, constantly in pain. I haven't had one UTI in 3 years. And I'm old.
Jeez.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm an old lady. I should be having the UTI. When you get older, you get UTIs. It's just part of getting older. No, it's not. Okay. My breast lumps are gone. My thyroid numbers are improving. My anxiety is totally gone. Okay. The only time I get anxious now, after living a life of horrific anxiety and depression, is when I'm dumping because there's oxalate in my system and my anxiety goes up. My exhaustion, my energy level is so much better. I used to feel like I had the flu every day. I could not get off the couch. I would just lay there drooling and moaning and asking God to please take me home. I sleep like a log. I used to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, put on a pot of coffee, and stare outside at the street lights on my street. I had nightmares and sleep paralysis from when I was a little girl. I haven't had one nightmare in 3 years. My incontinence is gone. My strep infection is gone. My titers are normal. My fibrinogen levels are normal. So what am I saying in all of this? If you want to be sick, don't do any of this, okay? And if you want to be well, do it. I'm not promoting this book. I'm just trying to help people. I am promoting it. No, I am. That's not what this interview is about, but this is a manual and a guideline that will make the process understandable and easy.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I get annoyed. Like, I'm not really annoyed. I'm a very nice person. It's just that it's so serious. You know, we try to make light of it, but it's a very serious problem. It's getting worse. Now they're pushing plants as if it was, you know, air. And it's not going to do anybody any good. It's not going to do anybody any good.
Yeah. If I feel like it's almost like, you know, coming from my perspective, it just seems like what they tout as the most healthy superfoods around are the most toxic foods that we could be eating. And it's almost as if it's some plot by big pharma to make us sick so that we'll have to go on their drugs and stuff like that. Now, of course, people would say you're a crazy conspiracy theorist, but where do people get this? Where does this idea come from that the healthiest foods, the biggest superfoods out there are spinach, almonds, dark chocolate, turmeric, you know, all these foods are the absolute highest in
To
anti-nutrients
drink
and
golden tea
toxicity.
every night with too much.
Jesus, you know, it's just everybody's on turmeric
I used
now.
to
Everybody.
pour root into my juicer. Wait,
Oh my
um,
God. It's just
um,
like, and we were talking about before this. What do people take for gastrointestinal distress? What do you get prescribed if you have gastritis?
yeah,
What does your
well,
naturopath tell
because
you
you
to do?
can't poop. Okay, so you can't poop. The big fix for not being able to poop are chia seeds and slippery elm. Those two things are so high oxalate, it's
Yeah.
going to turn your poop into cement. If you like
Or
to try to pass,
marshmallow, exactly, marshmallow root and all these other roots, licorice root, DGL, they're all insanely high oxalate.
well,
And this is what they
DGL,
tell you to.
DGL, you know, it is kind of like, I think, you know, the supplement is okay. I don't
Oh,
want
is
to
that
say,
okay? I don't know.
I don't want to say, but what I will tell you is slippery elm and all of that kind of stuff. Listen,
Terrible.
this is my motto. If it's a plant or it comes from the plant or a root, you know, if it grows in any other way other than like a living human being, like, you know, an organism like an animal or a human or whatever, proceed with caution.
Yeah.
Caution. If it grows in the ground, or it grows, you know, whatever, the reason it has these chemicals in it is not because somebody sprayed glyphosate on it. That's a problem too. But even if there was no glyphosate, plants would still have a defense chemical in them because they do not want to be eaten. They want to grow. Almonds and cashews, they want to grow. They're a seed. They want to go in the ground and burst into a tree. So in order to protect themselves from predators, which we are at this point, they have to have something to protect themselves. So they have an intrinsic, innate defense mechanism, which is made of an acid, oxalic acid. If we eat it, it makes us sick. It gets into our body. It binds with calcium. If it doesn't find it in your intestines, it'll go looking for it. It will leach it from your bones. It will form into a crystal, and it will wreak holy havoc. It is like having shards of glass inside your body. If I was sitting here munching on a light bulb, you would be like, are you crazy? You can't chew on glass and swallow it. Meanwhile, people are drinking glass smoothies every day.
Glass smoothies. That's a good way of putting it. So give me some hope here, Jeannie, because I've been suffering like crazy recently. And how long does it take, do you think, from what you've seen, for somebody with severe oxalate toxicity? How long does it take before they start seeing some progress here?
This is a hard question because it's different for everybody. You have to consider genetics, which has an impact. You have to consider how much they've eaten. You have to consider other things like, you know, heavy metal toxicity and all the rest of that stuff. But let me just tell you, this is the hope. The hope is it does come out. The hope is that our bodies are made to heal, and that if we don't get in the way of it by putting more toxin in, they will begin to heal. So, and as you go along in this process, you're going to have ups and downs, but you're going to have breaks. And when you have that break, you're going to feel better than you did the break before. Okay. So every time I go through a break, I feel a little bit better than I did the last break. And I know that I'm healing. So if you keep that in your mind, my body was made to heal. I'm not putting toxin in. This isn't easy. You have a few key things that you can do to help ameliorate the process and keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. And don't look for excuses to eat this stuff with, well, it was Christmas, so my family eats almond cookies, so I couldn't make my grandmother feel bad. No. If you have a glass that's filled up to the top and you're not eating oxalate and it's starting to go down, 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 the level is starting to go down, 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 and then on Christmas, you decide you're going to eat, almond flour cookies, you're going to go back over the top. So don't undermine your progress. Be consistent, be committed, and be courageous, and you will get better.
Yeah. Do you think that when you do have a cheat day like that it kind of undoes all the good work you've done?
Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to have a cheat day?
Yeah.
I mean, I always use this example, and I guess people may be getting tired of it. I mean, would you drink a little bit of gasoline instead of having an 8-ounce tumbler? Would you have a shot glass and say, well, I only had a little, so it's okay? It's poison.
Mm-hmm.
It
Exactly.
doesn't change from poison during the Easter holidays when there's chocolate bunnies around. The chocolate bunnies are poison. It doesn't change from poison at Christmas when there's, lots of nuts and seeds and things that you're eating because that's the tradition. It doesn't change. It's poison whenever you eat it, however you eat it. So my question is, if you want to look for an excuse to do this, you're still not sick enough. When you get sick enough, you'll say,
exactly.
I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm there, Scott. I'll tell you what, if people put something in front of me, I don't have any problem. People are eating things in front of me, and I'm not even tempted by them, because I don't say like, gee, maybe if I just have a little chocolate, or it's like, to me, it's death. It's like, you want to tempt death? Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I have a lot of people coming to me, asking me questions, and a lot of times that question will be around something like alcohol or what they could eat, and they'll say, well, I don't need to eat this way forever, right? Like, I'll be able to drink alcohol and, eat sweets again and stuff like that. And, at some point after a while, I mean, I've been really, really sick. I mean, when shit really hit the fan, excuse my language, it was about 6 years ago. And at this point, I'm just happy to come out alive. I'm happy I come out having a good hour in the day where I feel good, where I actually feel like I'm alive and feel good and functional.
Well, Scott, I told you, I'm not going to diagnose you.
Yeah, the idea of drinking alcohol or being able to eat cookies again is the last thing from my mind. I just want to come out of this alive,
Right. Well, I think that, I kind of feel like, I don't know, I'm not going to diagnose without a license. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a knowledgeable, but a lot of times when you've really changed your diet like this, and if you've been really, really toxic, the reason that you might be feeling so bad is because you may need a little more oxalate. I mean,
could be, yeah.
Slippery out. You did your own experiment.
Yeah,
you felt better for 3 days. So there's the answer to your question. So what you have to do is systematically and carefully measuring out, add a little bit more until you get some relief. It's a little bit of relief, I lost you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, exactly. Jeannie was talking about, so I had a terrible case of gastritis from eating too high fat, and from other factors as well. I'm sure oxalate's part of it, and I took slippery elm and didn't realize that it was a super high oxalate root or bark or whatever the heck it is. And at first I actually felt great. I was like, oh, this stuff is great. I love it. My stomach calmed down. Everything started feeling better. About 3 or 4 days later, though, all of a sudden the rashes started. My stomach started hurting worse. And my chronic pelvic pain syndrome came back, which I hadn't had in quite a while.
Right.
that started flaring up. I still have it. I still actually, weeks later, I'm still getting bouts of the chronic
So
pelvic
what,
pain.
so that says to me, or,
Yeah.
is that you are dumping. That's why you had the gas. I get terrible gastric dumping. And you had these slippery elm, and the slippery elms. I would say you'd have to probably check with Sally, but I would say it slowed the dumping down enough where you weren't dumping that much to your gastrointestinal system. Everything just slowed. You felt a lot better. And then by taking it, you went over the limit, and you picked yourself back into the situation you were in, and it all came back, so it meant that, when you were dumping or whether you were eating it, both things had the same symptoms. And that's how you can see it. And the only
Exactly.
thing that
Yeah.
made it go away was adding more oxalate.
I
Right?
know. That's why I asked you, if when you cheat, I didn't even know I was cheating.
Right.
I inadvertently cheated, but I should have known better. I should have known to check at whether slippery elm was. I just saw these tiny little capsules. I was like, oh, there's no way there's much ox there. I didn't even think about it, to be honest with you.
I check everything, even if it's like like sometimes, if you take a supplement like a bee that has bees or in it, you can see at the bottom, sometimes they'll add stuff in that, I don't know why this is in here, but you need to read every label, and you need to know, and you need to keep it first and foremost in your mind. If it's plants.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are one of these people like us, and you are eating dark chocolate and spinach and potatoes and other things, and you're having problems with your neurological problems or pain, joint pain conditions, or kidney stones, or whatever urinary pain conditions, please listen to low oxalate grandma, low ox grandma, and cut out oxalates. It's not a big deal. You still have thousands of foods you could choose from that are low oxalate. So that should be the first order of business.
And even if you don't have symptoms, poison isn't good for you.
Exactly.
It doesn't do anything for anybody. So even if you have congratulations that you have no symptoms, stay that way by avoiding poison.
Exactly. There's no
There's redeeming factor.
There's only maybe, there's not that many foods that are super high oxalate. Nuts and even like pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, I think, are lower oxalate. But there are some lower oxalate options of oxalate foods, right? And like there's so many foods you could eat that what's the point? Does anyone actually like spinach? I've never heard of anyone say, oh my God, I crave spinach.
Let me just
so bad.
You, Scott, my friend. We have to get to the point where we're not in a reward system 24/7. We don't need to be rewarded with food for doing the right thing. You should do the right thing either way. We don't need to be rewarded with food because it's a holiday. It's nice, it's wonderful, it's great. But you want to know what? Food is about nutrition. Vegetables and nuts and seeds, you don't get any nutrition. They're anti-nutrients. Okay, so that means they do nothing for you. So the point being that why are you eating something that does nothing for you? Why don't you eat some cardboard or gravel or something? If you start to view food as fuel for health and well-being instead of a reward system where you have to be eating things because you need to have the serotonin in your brain, stimulated, by chocolate or whatever, just let it go and just say, my goal with this food is not reward, it's health. I want to be better. I want to feel better. I don't want to be in pain. I don't want to grow up to be a crooked old person with a cane complaining that the reason I'm like that is because I'm old. I'm 68 years old. I walk 5 miles, not every day, but whenever it's not cold. Okay. I feel better now at 68 years old than I have in 30 years. So that means what was happening to me was not aging. It was poison. Period.
Exactly. And one thing I forgot to touch on with you, I know our conversation is going on long here, and I hate to take up too much of your time. But
I said, how am I going to get Scott to fit Scott in because I'm working full time.
Yeah.
But I said, you know what? this is important enough for me to charge myself time, like a quarter of a sick day or a half of a sick day, so that I can fit you in here and get this in, because it's too important not to. This is not important if you're poisoned to death. You know what I mean?
And we appreciate that, Jeannie, for sure. And I really appreciate that. But so what do you think of the state of our world in terms of like food recommendations? Everyone's going plant-based now. It seems like my generation and the younger generations, like everyone I talk to in their 20s and 30s, a lot of people are going keto, but
I don't want to come out of
everyone's
the
going
closet.
plant-based.
I don't want to come out of the conspiracy closet.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, please do.
I
Please
don't
do.
know. I don't want to. I mean, I'm extremely political. I've had many years of writing political articles. I was published as a lead writer for many years. I'm not going to, that's all I'm going to say. Do I think that all I'm going to say to you is that nothing that the people in control have ever recommended to us has been to our benefit. It's always to their benefit. Have you noticed? Okay. So my motto is, if they say do this, I do that. They say go left, I go right. I don't listen to what they say, because thus far, any of their recommendations supposedly going to be for our well-being only hurts us. That's all I'm going to say. Young people are peer pressured. They need to start thinking for themselves. Unfortunately, they go to a public school system that teaches them not to think. It teaches them to just listen to what everybody says and never question. Okay. So unfortunately, in our society right now, we have a bunch of lemmings that don't want to take the time to put their phone down long enough to think something through. Like, wait a minute, didn't they just tell me to do this? And didn't this happen to me from that? So if they tell me to do this, maybe I shouldn't do that, because maybe something's going to get worse. Get my point?
Yeah. I'm scared for this upcoming generation, because I feel like they're really doubling down on these foods.
It's not just food. You know, if you teach people how to think critically, they become dangerous, because then you can't control what they do. When they're doubling down on this food, but they're also attacking the meat. They're telling us we shouldn't eat meat, that there's something wrong with meat. There's something wrong with the most nutritious food that we can eat. Okay. So
that we've been eating forever.
Right. That if we were eating plants the whole time, if everybody was a vegan, the human race wouldn't even be here. That's what people say, well, isn't meat bad for you? Well, if that was true, we wouldn't be here right now, because everybody would have died at some point from meat. I go to the doctor and she's like, your cholesterol is like 300. I'm like, really? Okay.
Great.
And she goes, I want to put you on a statin. And I said, no. I said, you want to give me an LDL particle test. What's that? I said, it's a test to test whether or not my cholesterol, my LDL, which you consider to be bad, is dangerous. Okay. I said, look it up in your little book and order the test. I did it. She comes back, wow, you're fine. So if you want to be led around by the nose without any knowledge, then go for it. Your life will end up not in a very good place. Learn, be interested, question everything, and be your own best advocate, and you'll have a much better life and a much healthier life.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of the silver lining and gift of getting sick, is that you don't become complacent anymore, right? You start thinking critically, you become knowledgeable, right? So for me, I know that it took being severely ill to come out of that state that everybody's living in, this kind of, again, I always say matrix-like world where you have the wool pulled over your eyes and you start thinking critically, because you're like, okay, everything I've been told is wrong here. Everything. And
I guess in some circles, like doctors and stuff are well-meaning, I guess. I mean, I have a very wonderful doctor, but she didn't know anything. I gave her a copy of Sally's book. She's reading it. She's a woman that specializes, she's a doctor that specializes in women's health care. And she's got women that come to her with vulvodynia, and they get lidocaine and estrogen and never get better.
Yeah.
So if I have to be out there and be annoying, which I am, excuse me,
So be it.
and I have to talk too much, which I do, and I have to have a special zoned in on one special interest, which is oxalate. But my way of thinking is, if you were in danger and I could save you, I would grab you by the neck and pull you backwards, throw you on the ground and sit on you if that would stop you from hurting yourself. So I'm being really nice if all I'm doing is talking and sharing, right? I'm not sitting on you yet.
Yeah.
I might sit on you if I see you at the juice bar.
I could tell you're a real nice lady, and you're probably a lot less diplomatic than I am. And
Yeah,
I think that you're a very caring woman, and I know that you are trying to sound the alarm bells as much as you can. I mean, you're not somebody trying to try to sell supplements or anything like that. You have your Instagram, and you're on there almost every day, posting things for people to learn from. And I think that you are saving a lot of people. You're helping a lot.
I'm a very strong believer. I'm a very strong believer. I have to say that. And I really believe that everything that I went through, and there's more to this, I'll fill out the next time I come, I'll do the backside too. I believe that I went through everything that I went through, and that I have insight into it at this point in my life, because God wants me to help people and warn them.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to listen to that. Doesn't really matter what anybody thinks, right? So that's what I'm doing. And it's so satisfying to see some people actually listen and get better. I feel so happy. You couldn't pay me money that would make me happier than that.
Exactly. And that is, again, that's a silver lining of getting this sick, is that it does bring some purpose in your life. As sick as I am, when I have somebody tell me, Scott, your recommendation literally saved my life, nothing beats that. I get very emotional when I hear that, so
you're going to get better all the way.
I've had a few people tell me that, some people, because I come from a psychotropic drug withdrawal community, and that's part of the reason why I started this channel. And I tell them they need to change their diets around, and they need to fix some things, and they do that, and they say, Scott, I just feel it's like night and day, and when I hear that, it's just like, man, would I take back being sick all these years? I don't know if I would, because I feel like I've just, I've developed this new purpose in my life in helping people,
I was in the hospital once with a blockage. It's just so traumatic. I can't even. And the image that I have is of the people. There was a floor. I don't know what the hell they called it. It was some kind of weird name, telemetry or whatever. I don't know. But everybody on that floor had blockages, right? And they all had an NG tube, which I had, I just pray to God that I never have to have that again. And they would just walk around outside with these tubes and everything. And the doctor would say to me, once you have this, you're going to have it 3-4 times a year. It's like a kidney stone. Like people have chronic kidney stones. They have that terrible pain. And it's always the trauma of having to pass those stones is always right in front of them. It's traumatizing. Get PTSD from it. And I was just freaked out completely, because I was like, what do you mean 3 times a year? It's 3 years later and I haven't been back. Okay. And I would love to just go up to that floor if they'd let me in and talk to those people and say, the inflammation, the scar tissue, the fear and the anxiety that is attached to this can go away. It can change. And to pull those people out of that place of desperation, when you're that desperate and that scared, there's not a food on the planet that is more important than not feeling that way ever again.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I get upset. It's
I
just,
know. I know. It's very hard to see, it's very hard to see. And sometimes, you can do everything you can, but you can't save everyone, unfortunately. And people
no.
have to be willing to open their minds, to your suggestions. And unfortunately, it doesn't always happen. But you're doing a lot of good work, Jeannie. You're doing a lot of good work. And I see your face out there all the time. You're one of those warriors out there who's just sounding the alarm
A little
bells. And
obnoxious. People are like, what is with the music?
nah, never. I love low ox grandma. I
And
always love it when I see a post from you.
I say, listen, you got to get in people's face to get them to hear, listen. Sometimes they're like, okay, all right, I'll listen.
I
If
wouldn't
I
get
don't
into a
listen,
fight
they're
with
going to
you.
go away.
I say I wouldn't get into a scrap with low ox grandma. I'll tell you that much. Uh, anyway, Jeannie, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. I'm hoping you could come on again because this has been very insightful for me.
We can talk anytime. We can go through each one of these things and we'll go
We
through each
should.
one.
You know what would be my dream is to get you and Sally on at the same time.
She wants me.
We'll try.
She's my girl. She's my, I just adore her, and she's such a hard worker, and she's dedicated so much time to trying to help people, and she's just a fantastic person, and she's done this journey on her own all these years. No, I have to say, TLO Facebook page, TLO Oxalate Facebook page, Susan, Monique, all the moderators there, and other people from way back, from the Vulva Pain Foundation and this and that. But Sally took all the loose ends and she tied it together into this book right here. Okay. She did it for all of us. She's the person. So she's my person, at least.
Yeah. And she's a very courageous lady because she's coming from Cornell, of all places, that are very, plant-oriented, plant-based. And she's kind of gone the opposite route.
But Sally got sick. So when you're sick with oxalate toxicity, all of your credentials and all of your titles and all of your education flies out the window, because it doesn't really matter where you went to school or what you learned. If you're sick, you want to get better. And so Sally took all of that ability to research and to learn and to understand, and she put it towards something that's helping people and is going to help people get well.
Exactly. Yeah. She's such a courageous lady. So you guys should really order that back. We don't have any affiliation, but at least I don't. I don't think Jeannie does either.
I'll ask her if she wants to do it. That's fine. But you know what? The problem with me and Sally is Sally's a lady and she's very classy. And I'm from Brooklyn and I talk too much. So I wouldn't want to over. She's got the really important things to say. I have the la.
Well, Sally likes to talk, I'll tell you. She likes to talk. Great lady. Such a nice lady. She's one of the first people who came on my podcast. And when I didn't have a pot to piss in, no one wanted to come on and talk to me. Sally answered her email herself. No handlers, no dancing around saying she's too busy. She said she wrote back to me personally and said, I'd love to come on as much time as you need.
She's a sweetheart.
Absolute sweetheart.
God bless her. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Jeannie. And we'll have you on again if you'll accept. And we just want to thank you so much. I mean, it's just, again,
and I want you to feel better too. Okay, brother?
Thank you.